Is this thing on? It's the phone. Hello. Hello, James Gunn. It's always great to hear from you. Calm down, James. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. You feel under pressure. What's wrong? You read that Hollywood Reporter article where opinions about the sneak peek preview of Superman are divided. Calm down. Look, James, your film's either going to succeed or fail. James? Oh, Jen, hello. What happened to James? He fainted. No, you can't come over. The woman can't get enough of me. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I'm Nick, your host with the most to start your girlfriends and your wives. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X, on TikTok, Mad Mickey's World, and on Snapchat, BMouth60 Mick, your host with the most. You shouldn't go on there unless you've got a strong stomach and you don't get offended very easily. So a very warm welcome to Saturday's edition of the DCU Daily. And today we're going to be reading an article about how the reaction to James Gunn's sneak peek preview of Superman is divided on social media. And the DC fandom has been divided for a very long time, and I feel the route to this film's box office success, if that's going to happen, is via DC hardcore comic book fans and the general audience, but even they're hard to please. I think I said it yesterday on my react video to the preview that us DC fans are a hard nut to crack. We're very hard people to please, and you can see it through all the nitpicks from this preview, but the nitpicks with Superman Returns and Man of Steel. Superman Returns, Kate Bosworth is too young to play Lois Lane, and in Man of Steel, Amy Adams was too old to play Lois Lane, and she's slightly older than Henry Cavill. Superman doesn't speak enough in Man of Steel, apparently. These were all the nitpicks. Oh no, Pa Kent said he should have let the people, young Clark should have let the kids die on the bus. Oh my God, what's going on? All these nitpicks. And now we've got new nitpicks. We've got, oh my God, why is Superman screaming? Because the sun's on him. In other movies and in comics, he doesn't scream. But it's an out of context scene. You don't know what he's been through, right? He may be in such a weakened state that the sun is literally burning him before he powers up again. They already mentioned how his bladder was damaged and all of that. Fixing his organs also would be painful, so it's a nitpick. Some valid points have been made in criticism of that sequence. That isn't one of them. So let's read this article. Look, I understand why fans are angry. I understand why Snyder fans are angry. I understand why Henry Cavill fans are angry with this studio. When they lied to us, he was coming back. It was the beginning of digging a hole for themselves they simply couldn't dig themselves out of. Before the Henry Cavill Superman post-credit scene for Black Adam, Snyder fans and Cavill fans were calming down. They kind of accepted that he wasn't coming back and Snyder probably wasn't coming back. But then they got people's hopes up. And it wasn't like Snyder fans were happy with that post-credit scene. They hated the fact of the spit curl. They hated the fact of, the composer of that film using a version of the Williams theme. These were all Henry Cavill's provisos for coming back. He believes in true blue Superman and doesn't particularly agree with the kind of Superman he played. That's up to Henry. Henry has a history of having his own views on the character he plays. So I understand why you're angry. I'm not a devout Snyder fan and I'm not a devout James Gunn fan. I love Zack Snyder's movies, especially his 4 DC movies, including Watchmen. I love 300 as well, right? And I appreciate James Gunn's comic book stuff. Someone on Twitter yesterday said to me that I have to take a side. No, I'm not here to fight a war. I'm a pacifist. The only side I take is of good entertainment. If someone entertains me, they can, basically, I don't care. It's like a woman wearing a low-cut top, right? And saying, Do you like what you see? I'm going to say yeah, right? At the end of the day, I'm only a human being. I'm a lover, not a hater. And as Rachel Zegler says, if you don't like that, I don't need your business. But if you're looking for an objective guy to talk objectively about DC and entertainment, I'm your man. Let's read this article. And I do apologise, I have to sit this way back because the sun is too bright and I want you to see my beautiful face. Anyway, right. James Gunn's new Superman footage divides internet. Superman doesn't whine. Do you believe a man can write? The filmmaker's vulnerable take on the Man of Steel provokes debate. Let's see what James Hibbard has to say here. Up, and ah! Footage of DC Studios' highly anticipated revival of Superman is dividing fans of the iconic DC Comics character after a 5-minute clip from the upcoming film, it wasn't even 5 minutes, below was released Thursday. The video depicted a suffering Man of Steel being assisted by his dog and a squadron of robots. The film, from writer-director James Gunn, who is also co-chief of DC Studios, is considered a critical make-or-break movie for the studio, which is heavily relying on the July the 11th release to help launch a new generation of superhero titles. Some degree of social media snark about any superhero-related film is to be expected, especially if a filmmaker is taking some risks with the material, as Gunn clearly is. The Guardians of the Galaxy director is shifting Superman into a lighter territory following the glum core aesthetic of director Zack Snyder's take on the hero in films, such as 2013's Man of Steel. Is Man of Steel glum? Is Man of Steel glum? It's serious. Now this is very interesting. That's one of the huge criticisms of Man of Steel. Man of Steel really wasn't criticised for its lack of quality. It was criticised for being serious and dark. But it's interesting how many times Henry Cavill does actually smile in that movie. We heard accusations that he doesn't smile in that movie. He does. That joyous scene when he flies is amazing. He smiles at his mother. We haven't seen David Cronswett's Clark or Superman smile once in these promotions. It's obviously been purposely done. This is very, very interesting. And it's going to be interesting when people and critics and the media and fans see this film, if they're going to accuse it of being too silly. This is what I'm talking about. Nitpicks, nitpicks, nitpicks. Man of Steel was too serious. James Gunn's Superman is too silly. So you can't win with Superman, and that's why he's been more successful on television than he has been on film. You just can't please us Superman fans. It's a problem. Anyway, in the clip, a broken and battered Superman lays in the snow as he's pummeled even further by his over-enthusiastic dog Krypto, causing him to wince in pain. Krypto gamely drags him back to his fortress of solitude. There, Superman is assisted by a quartet of robotic caretakers who heal him with a magnified sunlight, causing him to scream and writhe in agony. This is followed by a series of brief shots from the rest of the film that we've already seen, by the way. Anyway, the online reaction has been pretty strong and apparently comes down to two factors. Do you want a Superman who is more impervious and godlike, or one that's more human and vulnerable? He's not human. Superman is human in personality and character and mentality. Physically, he's not human unless he basically has magic. A sorcerer is using magic against him, or with some form of kryptonite. Let's get that clear. That's who Superman is. If I was telling a Superman story, I'd make that clear. His personality is human because he was brought up by humans, but his DNA is absolutely Kryptonian. So anyway, more human and vulnerable. Do you want a Superman movie that takes itself quite seriously, or one that's more comedic? Do you know what I would like? A little bit of comedy and a little bit of seriousness. About 25% of comedy and the rest absolutely taking this character seriously. I'm fine with that. But I'm also fine with what Snyder did as well. Anyway, first, here are sampling from the naysayers from across X, Reddit and YouTube. The real Superman doesn't need a bunch of robots to carry him over to a table to heal. and doesn't whine like a little bitch when the sun hits him. Again, a nitpick. This is from someone clearly that is angry that Zack Snyder's not making DC films anymore, or a Henry Cavill fan. As I say, I understand why people are angry, but these are nitpicks. These are contrived nitpicks, purposely done in a negative way. I get it. You're trying to find a way to put people off from going to see this movie. You're angry at the studio. I absolutely understand. But as a fan of objectivity, I'm sorry, I can't go with it. Anyway, Snyder's Superman literally took a nuke at point blank range and healed from the sun without feeling any pain from its radiation, which is accurate in the comics. Gunn's mediocre interpretation is screaming in agony. Right. So this is interesting, right? Superman takes a nuke, right? Which seems to kill him, right? Now, is he weak? Is he weak when he takes that nuke? Right, don't forget, should Superman be impervious to a nuke? The problem is he's away, I think, from the sun's core as well, so he's in a weakened state. So just because Snyder's Superman doesn't scream and wince, it doesn't mean that Gunn's can't. You know, Zack Snyder's law isn't more, universally right than anybody else's law. So I think it's okay for Gunn to say, look, my Superman's in a weakened state. The sun's bloody hot. He's weak. He's weak probably near to human level, and that's why he's screaming. It absolutely makes sense. Anyway, James Gunn gets it, they said. He won't make it a stupid comedy, they said. They said he understands the assignment. That was the worst Superman clip I have ever seen. It's an utter joke and it's all about crypto. First of all, it's not all about crypto. I like the scene, right? Crypto is there for kids. That's obvious, right? I thought the amount of times he jumps on Superman was way over the top. I don't like this nitpick of, oh, my dog would never do that. He's a bloody alien dog. Get over it. It's fiction. It's fantasy. Shut up. Anyway. Now, here are some of the positive takes which seem to be in the majority. How in the name of hell can anyone not like this preview? I'm convinced some people just like to rage hate. This looks so Superman, it's insane. Well, I don't like the term, how can anyone not like something? Because it's subjective. Art, my friends, is subjective, and that's okay. By far and away, the best part of this trailer is that there is zero cynicism. Right, again, that's trying to take a dig at the Snyderverse. Why do people do that? Just love what you love and leave what other people love alone. Zero moral grayness, zero self-loathing, boring, shut up, zero sense that Superman is a vigilante. It's a romantic, idealistic, innocent vision, which is pure awesome. It is, it's good, but I like the other vision as well. Just shut up and love what you love. Love the design of the fortress, so do I of Solitude, and the giant double doors with the House of L, love that too. Symbol, that's lights up, I love that too. We have Crypto Keylets and other service robots. This is very Silver Age and all-star Superman, and I fucking love it. What's interesting about this, actually, we had Keylets robots in Man of Steel. So it's not like Gunn's the first person to do it in live action, and they look pretty awesome. But the accusation that the robots look very CW is dumb, right? It's a dumb take. The VFX in this Superman preview looks amazing. And the Snyder stuff looks amazing. Why can't we just love what we love or love both things? I don't get this society. This divide and conquer society we live in. It's driving me insane. The dog being a rambunctious little shit jumping all over you at the worst possible time is incredibly relatable. Also, good lord, everything about the fortress looks great. This movie is Superman as F-U-C-K. I agree. DC titles have endured several years of box office struggle due to a string of modestly reviewed efforts, such as The Flash, Black Adam, Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Coupled with the fate, and let's not forget Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn, whatever it's called. They don't want to talk about that woke one, do they? Facing all too familiar spectre of superhero fatigue. Nothing to do with that. Now, Gunn and his DC Studios co-chief, Peter Safran, who were not in charge of DC when those films were made. Actually, Safran was working with those films. His production company were involved with most of those films. So actually, mate, he had a lot to do with that. So So those films were made are wiping the slate largely clean with Superman. Largely, but not all clean. So it's very, very interesting. That's the article. So it's very, very interesting what people had to say. So there's a lot of valid complaints and there's a lot of nitpicks and contrived complaints, and I understand why, because some of you are in love with this take and some of you want to hate it because you're mad and you're angry, and I get it. My advice, if you're going to boycott it, do what you want. I'm going to go and see it and tell you what I genuinely, objectively thought of this movie. So bring on July the 11th. It's going to be an interesting day because people are going to be mad if it succeeds and they're going to be mad if it doesn't.